Wizards, welcome back yet again. This time around, we have another one we got a chance to tease you a little bit with over at SHOT Show when we visit our friends over at the Griffin booth. I'm pretty excited to try this one because it uses the same Mark II ambi lower that I just totally fell in love with and really like on a rifle platform, but now in a different caliber for an entirely different application. Oh, and because I seem to always forget to tell you guys, I put a link down in the description to all the different bits that I show you, to include most of the gear we're showing, also even some of our camera equipment. And I always forget to share, you can use discount code TLDco on all the Griffin products to include what we're showing today, or whatever else on their website. But that new weapon system we'll be taking a look at today is the all-new Griffin Mark II 9mm PCC in the 9.5-inch variant with the Sportsman ultralight 36 suppressor. The mantra behind this PCC is pretty interesting, where they want to give you the same reliability of like the Mark II or any other rifle setup, but in that 9mm caliber. Plus, make it all pretty awesome with the tuckable suppressor and all the cool stuff. Oh, we're already off topic here, but interestingly, no suppressor drama this time. I do want to share, it took me 4 days from delivery to the FFL to approval to ATF to pickup. 4 days total. That was pretty nuts. I do want to foot stomp for a moment and note that the can is sold separately, so when you go to order, you got to get both things, so just make sure to pay attention to that. I do also want to say that I think PCCs aren't necessarily the first pick for some folks, and even for myself, that caliber and that style of weapon system isn't something I generally just instantly gravitate towards. But a PCC can be a ton of fun to work drills at the range or for competitions when they just don't allow for rifle calibers, along with being used for steel targets at just a much, much closer distance without hurting yourself. A PCC really is just, I have to concede this here, a whole lot cheaper to shoot and a lot more fun out on the range because you're not spending nearly as much money. And in that more home defensive scenario, the pistol caliber carbine doesn't have nearly the penetration that a rifle caliber has and just works a lot better in that application. So even me, I'm kind of coming around and saying like, yeah, okay, I can see where I should probably invest more time and energy into a system like this. And even looking at it in a defensive scenario for maybe my wife to use, picking up something like this with its added stability and easier to use controls makes it so much easier and applicable for her to use instead of just picking up a pistol for the first time and hope she figures it out. But instead of talking about like why you should use a PCC, let's answer that question of, does the Griffin 9mm PCC actually fulfill those PCC roles that we're trying to actually do? So we'll find that out today, but first, let's take a moment. Thank today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you in part by Javlin Concepts. Javlin engineers the future of how gear is designed, from the insane comfort of the AJAC 2.0 to the innovative features of their silent placard system. Their cutting-edge equipment gives users the edge all the way from home defense to the field operative to blend function and comfort in the next-gen way. Javlin Concepts is just taking gear design up a level. As I've told you a few times too, Javlin Concepts stands by their AJAC plate carrier in being the most comfortable plate carrier you've ever worn, or they'll give you back $100. So if you want to take them up on that challenge, make sure to use discount code TLDco over on the Javlin Concepts website. So big thanks to Javlin for supporting us for this video and for helping to keep our voice just unfiltered on the entire channel. Now though, we gotta do everybody's favorite part with my biases. For this, I'll tell you right now, Griffin did send us this 9mm PCC for review so we can show it off to all of you. Plus, we do have a discount code with them where you can save some money, and it does help to support the channel. I also personally think the people over at and offer you a pretty insane product to price ratio. I feel like Griffin's just one of those companies that's just not actively trying to scam you, but as I mentioned, I don't generally love PCCs, so I definitely have some biases both ways. I say that to tell you to not take anything that I say or any other YouTuber says as gospel. We're all biased in some way, even subconsciously. And if someone is telling you they're not biased, they're probably selling you something, so don't forget that. Do your own research so you can be the most educated consumer possible. All right, we got all the mumbo jumbo out of the way. Let's hit the range and do some first shots. All right, guys, we have our Griffin 9mm here, so I haven't gotten a chance to test this out with the can or anything, so let's do some first shots and see how it does. I think it looks good and I think it sounds good, but there are some lessons that I learned out on the range that you may want to know about if you're going to purchase this firearm. But first, let's put it on the bench. And I think I already mentioned all the build items are in the description, all the different stuff, plus discount codes. Yeah, I already said that earlier. Let's get started. Now at the front, as we noted, we have our Sportsman Ultralight 36 tucked under our handguard. I did this in a tan color so you can see the contrast as to what exactly is going on underneath. Plus the tan looks awesome. This Sportsman uses a tri-lug so you can push down and reveal the muzzle device underneath. Since the handguard extends beyond the barrel, it would be dangerous to fire without a can or a longer barrel. People could make the mistake of putting their hand too far forward and get it in front of that muzzle device and really hurt themselves, or you could just blow up the handguard entirely. So make sure you're using a suppressor or changing out that handguard. If you're using the 9.5-inch build that I have, don't just shoot it as is. As I said earlier too, my wait time from ATF, like the whole thing was like less than a week with like a 48-hour approval time. So it's not like you're gonna be waiting 6 months to a year to put your whole system together. So get the can, get all the stuff you need. Oh, Griffin did tell me this also. They are making another 9.5-inch barrel variant with the shorter handguard so that you people who live in the communist states can actually use that same firearm and barrel because your state doesn't let you have, oh, it hurts my brain every time, doesn't let you have safety hearing devices. Now with our 9.5-inch barrel, the handguard itself is 13.5 inches long to sit just behind the end of the Sportsman suppressor by about 1.5 inches. The handguard also has M-lock slots all the way around, which I like instead of just the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position ones, particularly when you're mounting lights and IR devices. For lights, I connected in the Holosun Raid to try it out and add some visible light functionality, or swap the head to the IR light version for night vision applications. It's kind of cool, I haven't seen it very much, to have an actual flashlight head that you can just flip out for IR application. I think Surefire has done that in the past too, but they charge like 2 kidneys for high school level electronics. Oh, where is it? Hold on. I did actually tease this a few weeks ago, and when I showed it off, someone was like, oh, you need to push that flashlight forward so you don't get any shadow from your can. And well, 1, that's stupid because that's not how light works and shadow isn't a big deal. And 2, be aware of the area underneath where the can is tucked under the handguard. You don't have any room for M-lock screws for items to be attached underneath. So you do have to place items slightly rearward. But one thing I did also find was the handguard worked really great to keep your hand protected, even when the rate of fire got crazy and the can was extremely hot underneath. For our setup, I did also add in this awesome TLDco Tiger Claw to give you a nice hand stop. The handguard has a full rail along the top also that integrates into our upper, and we currently have our tan EOTech SPS red dot and Unity riser along the top. Now, I don't think this riser would be required for a lot of you righties, but me being a lefty with a 9mm PCC and a can that's designed for more sound mitigation than like cutting gas, it can get super gassy. So yeah, you can use risers like this for like night vision and all the other whatever you guys make excuses for. But in my application right now, it's just to get my face out of the blast zone. Again, as a righty, I don't think you'd even notice, and you would just probably love it, even in a lower height configuration. But even Griffin did agree with me that this can and PCC combination just isn't the best for lefties, so be aware of that. And I don't know if I'm allowed to actually talk about this, but they are doing a more high flow through 9mm can later that I'm personally looking forward to because I think that's gonna make this whole setup more fun for me. Now, I do also wanna note you have the option for front or rear flip up irons. Because I used a riser to escape the gas, these aren't doing much of anything at all, but I wanna show you them if you're waffling on if you wanna add them or not when you go to order. Moving down the rail, we have a 9mm forged upper that's similar to a standard AR upper, but with a smaller dust cover and the forward assist removed because in reality, that thing is pretty stupid. Some people like to argue this, but I want you to think about some of the worst jams you've ever had in your life and just think about how pounding on that forward assist could have made it, whoa, thousands of times worse. That thing is always just great. Back on the gun though, looking at our charging handle, we see the Griffin Suppressor Normalized Charging Handle Gen 2. I can't say it or I'm gonna get in trouble. To help cut gas escaping directly into my face. and our 9mm bolt carrier group that uses a direct blowback system, but you can see the similarities of the firing pin and the bolt to just a standard BCG. Now, one interesting bit as we move from the upper to the lower is the feed ramps are actually built into the lower. This brings improvements to the original Colt design by feeding the rounds more in line with the barrel. The feed ramp design follows that mantra that I told you about at the beginning to make a PCC that's as reliable as a rifle. Like, that's their whole aim. And I wish I could get a ton of hollow point and a bunch of defensive ammo to test this rifle out, because a surprisingly large number of PCCs on the market just get jammed up completely when you try to actually use defensive ammo in them. But I think having the feed ramps directly in the path of the chamber would clean up any issues there. We also see the extractor is integrated into the bolt catch bolt release mechanism. Talking with Griffin, this was done to make the extractor and bolt catch one single component and remove the need to tune the extractor like you had to do on the original Colt design. I don't know what tuning the extractor means, but it sounds horrible and annoying. So I'm happy to report that we had no issues whatsoever, and we'll talk about that more when we do all the reliability stuff. Also, take a look in here. I told you, this thing makes a good solid mess. Another feature inside is the new Griffin Stage 2 trigger. The trigger is fully adjustable at the front and rear to adjust the second stage and the over travel. Talking with you guys and also talking in our live chat, there's a lot of people who like having a 2-stage trigger, particularly for home defense. And there's some law enforcement agencies where that's actually required. So you have that extra level, that extra step you have to overcome before engaging a target. Me personally, I train in the defensive elements like Alliance, police training way of thinking, where you identify the threat and then come up on your optics, release your safety, and then engage the trigger. So I don't really see a lot of the benefit for me personally of having a second stage when I've already identified a target and a threat and that I want to pull the trigger before I've ever even come onto the trigger. But talking in a lot of our chats and other discussions and other scenarios, other more complicated, stressful scenarios, having that added layer never really hurt you at all. So it is a bonus. Either way though, the cool part about the Griffin Stage 2 is I can adjust it to such a degree that I can make the second stage extremely short, making it faster with a short reset. I'll show you when we go to do the speed test where in one, I left it in more like the factory 2-stage configuration. And then I adjust it how I like it to give a shorter disconnector and shorter travel to make it much faster. So you can see the difference between the two and how you would want to have yours set up. I won't lie to you, after the first trip, I was honestly gonna flip the trigger out to get it kind of how I like to run things. But once I realized how I could adjust this, I was like, oh, no, it's fine. I can just set up exactly how I want it. Just want to warn you that a little bit goes a long way with those adjustments. So don't go all willy-nilly with turning things around and then get mad when the trigger doesn't work anymore. Trust me, I know. While we're here though, I also want to show you this thing uses an enlarged brass buffer weight to get the same weight and firing rate as the M1A1, while also being extended to keep brass from getting lodged in the fire control pocket back there. My Strybog actually had that problem, and I had to get one of those short stroke blocks to put in there so the rounds couldn't go back in like the fire control area. So it's nice that they have that along with fixing the extractor nightmare that they referenced. There just seems like there's some smart improvements that they've already made with seeing some problems that other 9mm PCCs have. Now, some of you keen people may have noticed it's also actually using a 308 spring. That may be kind of surprising, but it was done in the same mantra as we mentioned to add some of that reliability across the large spectrum of different 9mm ammo. Now, I did test a standard buffer spring and weight, and I did really, really like it. So we'll show you that on the testing also if you're curious. Moving down, we see some of my favorite bits with the Mark II ambi lower. Here we have the normal and large takedown pins to make assembly and cleaning easy, along with the swappable ambi safety that has a nice audible and tactile 90-degree throw. On the right side, we have that standard mag release and the included bolt catch for you righties, so you can just use your index finger to manipulate the weapon and clear malfunctions. On the left side, there is a bolt catch with an enlarged bolt release paddle, and offset just slightly is the mag release that has a shelf below to catch your finger and put you in the correct position. Where's that gun at again? Okay, so I really like this because on a lot of other ambi systems, you can get some interesting things on the left side where the bolt catch, bolt release and the mag release are in line with one another. So I've had this happen a couple times where I've slipped off one and then just dropped the mag, and that's not great. So I love how they've moved it out of line from one another to solve that problem, because in a high stress scenario, it would be very, very frustrating to just suddenly drop a mag. Next, we'll take a look at the mag well, and we'll see it's reshaped to fit Colt style mags with a nice flare at the bottom of the mag well, similar to the Mark II, to make mag insertion simple and easy. Now, I know there's gonna be a lot of questions when you get to this part of the video of like, it's gonna be one comment actually. Why didn't they use Glock mags? And I actually did a little bit of research on this to find out like why you would use Colt mags, not necessarily just from Griffin, like find out for myself if there's some reality to this. And there is a lot of research about it, how single column feeding, like on a Glock and standard pistol mag, isn't nearly as reliable as double column feeding. Plus on the Glock mags particularly, they have a wonky way that they do last round bolt hold open. So that's why a lot of the guns that use Glock mags have trouble with that feature also. I'm sure Griffin has their own reasons too. So if you want to know why they used one over the other, just, I don't know, reach out to them and ask. Now, when you order, you also only get one mag, but you get different magazine capacity based on how ludicrous your state is. But you can buy more Colt mags off the Griffin website. They are kind of expensive. That is a negative of using Colt mags, but I think it comes with that added level of reliability that this whole thing is built around. Now, to give you some cheaper options, I also got some ASC mags that I'll leave in our build list too, that we can test during our controls portion. For the grip though, we have a standard Griffin style with that frag-inspired pattern. This grip is fine, but I'd likely swap it into a Kung Fu grip later for a more CQB kind of home defense style of setup. For our end plate, there's a QD here if you connect your sling in this position. I don't know anybody who does that. And then we have our buffer tube and SBA3 brace to finish out our PCC. All right, let's finally get into tests, and the first one we're gonna do is weight. And I think I have this set up pretty close to how most people would have it, with like a can, a flashlight, optic, and everything. So we can see what the end result kind of weighs. Here, putting on the scale, we can see our whole setup weighs about 8 pounds, 12 ounces. It feels like a standard 16-inch rifle if you kind of want to know what my thoughts are in terms of weight. But the full naked weight listed on Griffin's website is like 5 pounds, 13 ounces, 12 ounces, something like that. It's on the website. All right, though, let's move into our next test. And this one may be of interest to you, particularly if you're looking at a PCC and trying to decide between a couple different ones. And that's overall shooting feel and recoil. I'll say here that I wasn't originally having a great time. The volatility of the AAC ammo with the can's added back pressure and gas gives the Griffin PCC more of a sharper initial bite than an equally tuned rifle system. I was surprised by how much more recoil there was, and I did have a harder time initially controlling this setup at speed. Going back out with the riser installed, I did at least get my face out of the blast zone, and I swapped to some softer and cleaner blazer ammo, so it was more enjoyable, but the recoil was still notably more than an equally equipped AR style platform. I did find the overall increase in the recoil really, really interesting. Like, I wasn't really expecting that, but the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's to be expected with the larger brass, buffer weight, that's huge, and the 308 spring, that's adding the extra reliability across all the different ammo types. Now though, what if we change the spring and lose a little bit of that reliability? Swapping out the entire spring and buffer system, I found I loved this. The sharp bite of the PCC that was there before is gone completely, and instead you had a more linear recoil impulse that was identical to most rifle setups. The one I used was actually the standard Mark II buffer system if you want a softer impulse, but be aware that there may be a trade-off, as we mentioned, where some other 9mm ammo may not cycle correctly. All my ball ammo did just fine though. If I was making this setup for me, I would go ahead and switch out that buffer tube and spring because I did like that a lot better. Now though, talking about agility, I did also find this was faster than some other pistol rifle setups, but not in any sort of crazy sort of way. It did have more agility, it was quicker, but not of any factor that's really of note. All right though, let's move into the next test, and this one it does as wonderfully as expected with the controls. Having the Mark II lower, all the operations are easy, from dropping a mag or controlling the bolt with my left hand. I had no issues, and swapping over to my right hand, it's easy to have the same function to drop mags, release the bolt, or work to clear malfunctions. Having multiple mags now on my second trip, it was easy to go from mag to mag, and it became far more obvious how the ambi controls added a level of simplicity to the manual of arms. Now in that test, you may have seen that the ASC mags didn't want to actually drop freely, and I did have to work a little bit and clean those up because the Cerakote does add a little bit of a layer to that. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in our mag drop test, which was actually useful this time around, surprisingly. Controls-wise though, I think the Mark II lower is about as good as it gets, and there are products out there that you can pay probably twice as much than this and get less functionality, so remember that. The Mark II lower just absolutely murders the control test, particularly for the price. All right, let's move on to the next test. Oh, and I just mentioned this, the mag drop test. I only have the one Colt mag it came with, and yep, dropped straight. And this metal mag has always worked great. Testing our ASC mags, as I mentioned, I initially had issues, but I worked these in and sanded a bit of the outer coating, and after that, they dropped perfectly fine. I will also note that I had no reliability issues with either mag though. So there is a $12 option with these ASC style Colt mags. Just be aware that you probably need to do like 10 or 12 insertions of them to get them to fit correctly into mold, because this magwell has a really, really tight tolerance, but after that, yeah, it all works just fine. And I actually enjoyed the ASC mags a little bit better after going to the range that second day, so that's another data point for you. All right, though, the next test we have is trigger. Initially, I had the Griffin trigger in its factory 2-stage default, and I found I could run it that sort of fast, but not having it customized exactly to me meant I really wasn't flowing cleanly. Making adjustments and shortening the second stage, I could run things faster with having that shorter overall trigger travel and reset. Overall, I do like the 2-stage trigger. I just want to say that it is not a competition trigger. It is designed for purposeful and accurate shots, not really for dumping rounds into a trash can like I was trying to do. I would be very, very interested if Griffin started making a precision platform. Like, I've been wondering if they're gonna do that and put that 2-stage trigger in there. It would be fantastic. But I really do think for this platform and its application of like home defense or law enforcement, I think it is plenty fast, but you can dial it up if you wanna do that. Now let's do another test and test how this thing does on accuracy. I don't think I even zeroed this optic, and we set everything up on a bag to give you just a real life level of accuracy, like probably how you'd really use it. Setting up for a series of headshots at about 25 yards, I was pretty impressed with the group that we got. For just balancing on a bag, I thought that was pretty good in terms of accuracy, particularly out of a 9mm caliber. And I do also want to say that was in the standard, like the first time we went, the default 2-stage configuration. So again, I'm very interested to see what that trigger does in a precision rifle setup. All right, the next test is one where we had not one issue at all, which definitely surprised me for this type of system, with reliability. From being straight out of the box to running absolutely dirty and gross because I didn't clean it, the Griffin 9mm gave us no hiccups across different styles of ammo and different mags, giving us consistent lockback every single time, which can be impossible or rare for some PCCs. Now, I do hope someone who has more forward thinking than me can get a bunch of defensive and hollow point ammo to test that out. I really wanted to do that, but I just didn't have time to get all that together when I was doing it. So hopefully some other content creator can put that together, because that's something I also really want to see. All right, the next one is a far more opinion-based category, and you're gonna see all my biases come out with cool factor. To me, I thought the Griffin 9mm looks badass without being too far over the top. A nice tucked can that fits within the handguard, and all the controls nice and tidy. The Griffin PCC just looks well done and uniform from end to end. I mean, I personally love the black and tan accents. I love how that looks, but I also like the look of the executive being all crazy. So maybe my dial is a little bit off. All right, though, our last test we're gonna do is a challenging one. I won't lie to you. Comparative market. I also got to be careful here because this is where YouTube can get all pissy about promoting firearms manufacturers or some stupid garbage. So I'll show you photos of other options, and there are a lot of great choices on the market that you can get into for a bit less money. Do they have a top tier ambi-lower and an adjustable trigger? Maybe not. Do they have a system where you can add in a tuckable suppressor straight when you buy it? Probably not also. But from a comparative market standpoint, with the Griffin 9mm PCC, you are starting to get in the higher range tier of the PCC market. So if saving money and getting a more budget build is your goal, I think you could drop some of those features and pick up another platform and be just as happy. I certainly wouldn't disagree with you there at all, but if these are the features that you want, well, hey, there you go. It's all set up for you. Now, let's do the last bit with my final thoughts and, I don't know, ranking? Are we ranking these? No, I don't think we are. I think the Griffin 9mm PCC would be great for home defense or a duty gun that allows you to easily add in a suppressor for an overall quick and nimble platform. The trigger impressed me in its adjustability, and the controls, as always, wowed me. But as a lefty, I had to make a lot of concessions to make this weapon system fun for me. I really think it was done well, but it just wasn't perfect for me. I know I'm the odd man out being left-handed, and some of you righties likely wouldn't find any problem at all and would just absolutely love this. But I did personally find that on the Mark II, with the adjustable gas system and the Dual Lock 5 can with more of a flow-through system, I did enjoy shooting the Mark II, and it was a more pleasant and more fun shooting experience to shoot that than this PCC. But when we look at it from a home defensive use, and not just like overall shooting experience, or for in that competition space where you can't use rifle calibers, then yeah, I do think the Griffin 9mm PCC is a better choice over the Mark II. I will probably just use an ops core soda all the time so I can limit the amount of lead I'm shoving into my lungs though. So I do like it, but I would make some changes to it, like changing out the buffer system. I would make some more tweaks to the trigger and then have a more flow through can to make it a lot more pleasant for me to shoot. Now there's something interesting has happened because now all of our suppressor drama is over, and I actually have all the cans I've wanted to show you. Plus, there's one additional one we have that Griffin teased us with at SHOT Show also. So I ask you to stay tuned as we start our series on suppressors and go over a few different styles of cans in the Dual Lock family. I think Dan over at Dynamic Principles helped me to cement a testing methodology where we can test more of overall suppressor signature. So big thanks to him for helping me come up with that. But I hope this video on the Griffin 9mm PCC was helpful in your purchasing decisions. I want to say thanks to all of our Patreon supporters and all of our YouTube members. You make it possible we can test all these things out and come back and let you know which one of them is worth your money. I also want to say thanks to everyone that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below what your favorite PCC is. From our talks on Discord, it sounds like we're going to be doing a ton more of these. So let me know down in the comments which one you want to see. Maybe we can get some of these going head-to-head and actually do a ranking. So all right, let me get out of here. Walsh out.
Oh, but if you have your flashlight that far back, you're not going to be able to see your light because of the shadow of the suppressor. Oh.
You guys are probably also wondering how I sound with this thing on, and it's exactly how you would think.
All right, so yeah, this was a fun one. I did like testing this. I did also learn there's a lot of concessions for lefties for PCCs. I did know that already on the AR platform. I think that's the piece I just didn't come into this with, where I already knew what the concessions are for an AR. Like I know how to build them from the ground up, knowing I don't want to get gas in the face, but it is more of a challenge with PCCs because you often have proprietary bolts. But I know now that high flow through cans, for me personally, are going to be more advantageous. But yeah, very cool. I do want to tweak this thing out and get it to be perfect for me. What do we have coming up? I think you guys just got to see some pistol optics. If not, I had to juggle these videos around, and next you're going to have pistol optics, so that'll be interesting as to which one you have next. And then we got some cool stuff from Dynamic Principles. We're going to come out and showing their chest rig, which I think is pretty cool, how it can integrate into all your different pieces. So yeah, looking forward to that. Otherwise, oh, last thing, 50,000 subscriber giveaway. We're coming up on the number. It is going to be huge. So keep an eye out for some announcements. Join our Discord, follow us on Instagram, all those different things. Oakley, Ops Core, Defensive Elements, Defense Mechanisms, HRT. Dude, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be a whole gear you out, head to belt giveaway. We're gonna go a little bit crazy. All right, I gotta get some stuff together for it. I gotta go record some, I think I'm doing optics next. It's all out of order. All right, later everybody.